Hey, Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking about myself. Normally, here is where I dig into the speaker's accolades, although a lot of you already know about me, where I'm from, what I do, why I do what I do, and you don't need to hear me be braggadocious and spread my ego all over this podcast. So, in this episode, though, what we will be talking about, or I will be talking about, is how I've saved myself hundreds of thousands of dollars with great due diligence, and how I've saved my clients, millions of dollars in mistakes throughout due diligence. And I'm going to be telling you two different stories in this podcast episode, one of which is from somebody who bought a website without my help and the effects of that. And then also somebody who has bought a website with my help and the effects of that as well. We're also going to be talking about why most website investors, or when we're first buying our first website investment, we're buying based on emotions, and why that makes sense, why we all suffer from that, and how it's completely normal, and what we should be doing differently to ensure we're not buying based on emotions. We also talk about, how we should be digging deeper in our due diligence, how people very surface level with finding the information and getting information to equip themselves with a good investment decision. Then we're going to be talking about different questions that you can be asking and why you should be asking precisely and specific questions to brokers and sellers. And then how many risks there are involved with different business models and what you should be doing about that, and how you can combat yourself from making bad decisions and coming up against risks as well. And then towards the end of the episode, I have a very special gift for you. So if you stay all the way to the end, I have something very special that I've created that I'm sure you're going to absolutely love. So stick in, hang out for that. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll speak to you again soon. Today's episode is brought to you by Investors Club. Investors Club is a marketplace for serious buyers interested in proven businesses that aren't listed anywhere else. There is a free membership where you can get access to 14-day-old listings and can purchase due diligence reports for $47 each. Or if you become a paid member, you can get instant access to every single listing, unlimited due diligence reports, no fee escrow services, access to exclusive offers from Investor Club partners, and priority support. Now, sellers do sign a 2-month exclusivity agreement to only list with Investors Club. There are no purchase fees or commission, meaning the seller nor the buyer ever pay commission in any deal. And every due diligence report provides next level metrics to make sure due diligence is far less time consuming, making it quicker for you to seal the deal. Also, Investors Club have a great Q&A support available both for buyers and sellers. I'm a full member myself personally, and a lot of thought and effort has gone into this service. However, there are a limited amount of seats for this membership, so go and check them out at that URL, investors.club. That is investors.club. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. In this episode, you're going to be hearing from me, myself, and I, and it's a bit different because I've never really done a solo podcast before, but I'm excited to do so. And the main reason I'm doing a solo podcast is because I'm talking about a very, very important subject that I talk about a lot, but I want to get into it in heavy detail, and that is due diligence. And due diligence is the most important thing that I do. It's the most important thing that I teach because it's the gateway to owning an online business with who I work with before we get to the part where we're slapping down our money and we're purchasing a site and growing it as well. Now, obviously, through looking at so many sites, I've learned so much about how to structure deals and how to purchase them and how to scale and grow them. But we're going to focus on the gateway here because my goal is to teach people how to really do due diligence properly and conduct a great due diligence check, because I don't want them to buy a lemon. As you guys know, I built my whole business around teaching people to buy great website investments because I want to teach people to replace their income so they can have more time doing what they love and spending that time with people they love as well. Now, that's what my goal was. That's why I got into buying website businesses. And to do so, you don't want to wreck everything that you've earned or everything you've done to earn your hard-earned cash for and have that go down the gurgler. You don't want that to go down the drain just because you make some poor investment decisions. I really want to teach a man to fish rather than giving a man a fish for one evening. I want to teach everybody to do great due diligence so they can buy website after website and scale those websites and not need my help further once they've done the great due diligence they do. So obviously with my due diligence training and my help, I've had people go away and buy websites just by doing my theory and putting that into action themselves and not even speaking to me. And then I've had people that work with me more closely, and we're going to be talking about a few different experiences that people have had, either working with me or not working with me. So there's two different stories from two different people that I want to speak about in this episode. But as you know, I've looked at hundreds of websites, not just websites for myself to buy, but ones that all of my clients are doing due diligence on as well. And I've done so much due diligence on so many websites, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of websites that I've done due diligence on. And this not just hasn't helped me save over hundreds of thousands of dollars myself in making bad investment decisions, but as it adds up, probably saved my clients millions of dollars in mistakes as well. So it's important to understand just that once you do something so often, you become really good at it. And I'm not saying I'm the best at the world. I've just learnt so much in identifying risks, looking at risks, how to remove risks, and what's involved with many different types of website businesses. Anything from SaaS sites to e-commerce sites, content sites, and all of the like. Now, let's talk about these two stories because I feel they're very important and stories really convey the message best. So the first one is from a guy who didn't work with me. And one day I woke up and I got a message from this person he's complete random, never heard from him before. And despite listening to my podcast and watching my YouTube videos, which I know he's done, I woke up to him saying in the start of the message, it said, "Hi, Jaryd, I made a purchase of a website on Flipper. I know you recommend not to." Now, let me just speak about that. Now, I don't recommend everybody not buy websites from Flipper. Those who have experience doing due diligence and owning website businesses and know the difference between a good website business and a bad website business and are well versed in due diligence, sure, go on Flipper and you can find those diamonds in the rough. Now, most people go to Flipper when they're first starting out and they go away and purchase something that is not the best investment decision. And this is where I feel this guy went wrong. So as I started reading this message in the morning, my heart sunk, right? And it gets worse, right? What's this guy done? He's clearly messaged because he's made a mistake and it's costing him money, but how bad is it really? So I read on and I realized that he bought this website and it was making money from Google Ads. So it's a content site. And if you didn't pick up on what I said here, he said it was making money from Google Ads. The keyword is was making money. So it's no longer making money. And the reason being is because he bought the site and he applied to get the Google AdSense account approved because the owner wasn't going to transfer his because it's against the Google terms and policies. But I know that there are people that do this and I would prefer this to happen where they just change over the names and the passwords and stuff like that because it's an easier transition. Now, so he bought this site and it's not making any money from Google Ads and he didn't get approved. Now, he spent all this money on this website business that's not making any money. So he's not making any income. And this is, a terrible thing. And he said, do you have any feedback on how to deal with this situation? And my short answer was yes. I'm great at putting out fires. And I do this all the time with so many people in my community. They come to me and say, hey, this has happened. We need to change this, or what can I do? And we put out the fires and we make sure we, make sure we put out that fire and then we optimize the business so those, risks can't happen again. But the long answer to this guy is that I'm far better at preventing fires from happening, right? Far better at preventing them from occurring because I can, see what risks are involved with buying a site on so many different levels. And to understand the business better and ask better questions and understand what could possibly happen, and how do we prevent that from possibly happening? How do we cover our bases so that doesn't happen, right? So the few different things that you can do with Google AdSense sites is that you can obviously you can migrate the site or migrate, the Google AdSense account to the new owner, and the new owner just become the owner of the previous AdSense account that is already attached. Or you can ensure the site still adheres to the Google Ads policy guidelines before you go away and purchase the site and pay the money and put it down, to ensure that you're not just buying something that is already approved, it's gone a bit outside the policy and Google really hasn't checked or seen that, and then you go to get approved and then you have to wait a long time or change the site and you lose a lot of income over time. So there's a few different things that you need to check. So this has happened because this person didn't come to me for help and he hasn't done a full thorough due diligence training, or hasn't learned as much about due diligence as he really needed to ensure that this mistake wasn't going to happen. Now, let me tell you about another story of a guy that I have worked with, right? He came to me with a business that had so much opportunity, and I don't doubt that it had awesome opportunity, but what scared me the most was the amount of risk that was involved with it, right? It was a content site that made money through advertising, and on the outside, it looked like a good, solid, simple business, right? On the outside. Now, when I dug deeper, after him sending a bunch of information to me throughout due diligence, I realized that 95% of its traffic is coming from one source. The owner was already paying for a PBN, which is a private blog network, to keep linking to the site. And there weren't many well-ranked keywords, and most of the links coming to the site were either spammy or non-valuable links. And the scary thing is, what I saw was completely different to what my client saw. He saw a site that just needed some new content to get ranked a little higher, clean up its SEO profile, and life would be good. There'd be a decent business. Now, whilst that's true, he was obviously facing an uphill battle. You know, it would take him well over a year to obviously remove the risk of just being reliant on one single source of traffic, right? Which scares me the most. It's also going to take him so much longer to build a good SEO profile. And in fact, it would have just been easy for him to start a new website from scratch because of how fast this site was actually decaying. Whereas if he went to another site that had a lot of the bases covered, and yes, there's a lot of opportunity still within a different site, there wouldn't be the risks involved with the site that he's currently looking at. So that's very, very fascinating. And I was able to help somebody understand, not just tell them don't buy the site, but help them see and understand to not purchase a falling knife like this, right? He saw it as a wonderful opportunity, but what I like to show people is that dig deeper and look into the business further and really open yourself up to what you're not quite conscious of now, to understand what possibly could happen and how this could affect you in the long run with this possible business. So I'm all about teaching people to see these things for themselves, and I ask them questions that lead them down the track, or teach them certain due diligence steps that lead them down the track to help them see that a lot of these businesses may not actually be good investments. That is why I like to teach people to do it themselves through these due diligence trainings, to ensure that they can go away without my help after they've bought their first business and repeat this again and again and again, and not need my help to identify whether they're going to be buying a good business or a bad business. So that's really, really important to understand. And I get why a lot of people make bad decisions, especially when they're buying their first website. And the reason being, mostly, and I've talked about this before on the podcast with Michael Berezlavsky from Domain Magnet, and he noticed it, and he already made his first website purchasing decisions based on emotions, as did I, right? When we first come to the industry, we see that buying a website business gives such a great return on investment. We can make a lot of cash back a lot faster than traditional forms of investment. And it gets exciting. So we want to rush in. We want to buy a website. We want to start earning this income right away. We can literally see our dreams starting to come true right in front of our eyes if we buy one of these websites. And that's what happened to me, is I just went, all right, I'm going to buy one, another one, and another one. I kept buying sites, which is awesome, but I could have done this a smarter way and done it without emotions. And I could have bought easier websites to manage that were less risk, maybe a little bit less money, but would have been far better websites. And most people do this as well. I'm glad that I didn't make massive blunders because I wanted to be very methodical, although some people do see the dollar signs. And a lot of people do see these dollar signs and buy businesses just based off emotions. So it's hard, right? It's hard to buy our first website business without emotions because we get caught up in the dream. We get caught up in being able to achieve our goals. Now, how we remove these emotions is really learning how to do due diligence and learning a methodical procedure, a methodical step, knowing what we should be looking at. Which brings me on to my next point, is that when we go to buy a business, we get a bunch of information from the seller or the broker. Usually this is what we call a prospectus. And some people that aren't trained in due diligence or don't know due diligence is they go away and look at all that information and they make a decision whether to buy the business or not based off that information they got given. To me, this is just an absolutely reckless thing to do. And the reason I believe it's a reckless thing to do is because you owe it to yourself, if you're going to invest this money, to dig deeper and ask questions to find the information that the seller or the broker is not telling you. So there's some key specific questions that you need to ask. There's some key specific things that you need to find out about in different businesses, right? Content sites, you need to find different things. SaaS sites, you need to look and ask about different things as well. Same with e-commerce websites. And there's so many different things, and different business models have different risks involved with them. And you need to identify those risks as well. So it's not just enough to look at a prospectus and make a decision whether it's a good investment or not off a prospectus. You need to dig and find clues and find answers yourself. Ask the questions that you can't get information off the prospectus. Right? Ask the seller or the broker questions where there's no information on the prospectus for that is going to help you understand whether that's a risk or an opportunity. Okay? And then identify those risks as well. So it's really important to understand. So let me give you a bit of a recap on what I talked about here. Is once you start looking at lots of due diligence, lots of businesses for sale, you start doing a lot of due diligence and you start perfecting your due diligence. Obviously, it's quicker and easier to start doing that, having a base foundation of due diligence training, and then repeat the lessons that you learned through your due diligence training throughout due diligence on multiple websites, and you start to get better and better and better at that. We talked about these two different stories from two different people, somebody that came to me for help and I helped them to see that they were making a bad decision, and then somebody who didn't work with me and went away and made a bad decision and had to put out the fire, right? And had so much more stress and loss of income based off that. We also talked about why most people buy based on emotions and how hard it's not to. Even if it's your first website business, even if you've done some due diligence training, it's still hard. You still need to revert back to that training to make sure you do it in a methodical way, your due diligence that is, to ensure you're not going to let your emotions overpower your buying decision. And then we also talk about digging deeper, not just going from the information that we're given, but finding more information, digging for possible risks, and knowing precisely what questions to ask and how to identify those different risks is really important throughout our due diligence. Now, what I've done is I've realized how important due diligence really is over the time. And I decided to make a due diligence training that is just so inexpensive, that is just, there's no barrier to entry. There's nothing that can stop you from getting this due diligence training. This training is only $29. And a lot of brokers and sellers in the industry have recognized a lot of the questions and a lot of the due diligence that my clients are actually doing, and have been giving my clients great feedback on the due diligence they're doing and the due diligence that they've learned. So I decided to package up a mini training for only $29. It's super inexpensive for everybody that's listening that just wants to start learning, dipping their toe in the water with due diligence to ensure that they're not making bad decisions. So For those of you who are interested, and I suggest you do this, it's only $29. Do yourself a massive favor. Go away, and in the show notes, there will be a link to click to get this specific training, okay? It's my due diligence training. It's called How to Conduct Proper Website Due Diligence. And I cover so much within this training. I cover the questions that we need to be asking. I cover how to identify risk with different businesses. I cover all the different types of due diligence you need to be looking at, from traffic due diligence, SEO due diligence, financial due diligence, competitive due diligence, and marketing due diligence as well. So there's so many different aspects of due diligence within each different business model, and I address that as well. And I also give you my updated version of my due diligence framework that my clients are using, and all these different tools and resources you can use to dig in and find that information that brokers and sellers may not necessarily be giving you in prospectuses anyway. So the value is insane for this. Go away and check it out. Click the link. For those of you who are listening to this podcast, I hope you got a whole bunch of value from this. Just learning about the different stories and learning about what we should be doing in our due diligence alone is valuable. So if you did get value, please let me know with feedback by leaving me a review in iTunes and letting me know what you actually liked about this show, what you've actually learnt about this. And if you like that I'm doing a solo podcast as well, please let me know so I can come back to you with more solo podcasts on different lessons and different things that you would want to know about as well. So reach out to me on my website, buyingonlinebusinesses.com/contact, and I look forward to speaking to you guys on the next episode. Thanks.